Okay, has everybody had a chance to look over the agenda and have any changes or adjustments?
Joe, this is Mark. Katrina let us know that Marty Mosley is not going to be able to join us today. So that item should be deleted from the agenda.
Which item is that?
That's number 7, code enforcement update.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Great. Thank you.
So we'll delete that one and get started. Has everyone had a chance to look at the minutes from December 17th and any adjustments or changes?
Katrina, did you get the typos I sent?
I did. Sorry about that.
Okay, no, that's great. So they're not substantive, so there were a couple little things. So
I noticed though too, but as you said, not substantive, so I'd be happy to move the minutes.
So hearing nothing except for a few typos, can we approve the minutes as adjusted?
yeah, I'll second that. Mark.
And I can't see people, so I can't tell who's raising their hands and whatnot. So
I think
Mark,
everybody's happy.
that, please.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Then we can move on to the report from county administration. Do we have anyone here to give that report?
I don't see anybody on yet, Joe.
Okay, then why don't we pass over that and move on to the next agenda item? Tompkins County Food Future Community Survey.
Great. So I'll just chime in here a little bit, Joe. So Katie Hallis and Don Barber have offered to come speak to us today about the Tompkins County Food Future Community Survey that Katrina forwarded to us and alerted us or informed us about this program. So.
Thank you, Mark. Hi, everyone. As Mark said, I'm Katie Hallis, and I'm the coordinator for this project. Don Barber hopefully will be joining, but he might be a little late. So if it's possible for me to share my screen, which it looks like it is, I have some slides organized for you all. And I know Mark mentioned the community questionnaire, which I think folks have seen. And I do have a little bit more of an overview of the project and some of our work to date, if that's helpful, but please at any point just chime in with questions that you might have for me. Are you all able to see my screen that says Tompkins County Community Food System Plan? Okay.
Yes.
Great. Great. Well, thanks again so much for making room on your agenda. The project has been called Tompkins Food Future, so that's what you see there, but our work is to develop a comprehensive community food system plan, which hasn't actually been done. It's, as you all know, we have a lot of great plans in this county, ranging from transportation, economic development. We have comprehensive plans, conservation plans, but we've never really tackled food and our food system in a sort of intentional way. So that's what this work is about. Our goal is really to help support and further develop a food future for our community that is sustainable, equitable, healthy, and affordable for everyone who lives in our community. And I'll say part of why I've been really pleased and excited to work on this project is because it's an issue of such relevance to every single person. We're all part of the food system. We all play a role. We're all impacted. And these issues, which often kind of are invisible, for one reason or another, they don't exist in a vacuum. They are so relevant to the quality of life for all residents. And it's something that interfaces with so many different facets of our community, whether that's our local economy, our transportation system, our education system, public health and safety and welfare of all residents. It has huge implications for our urban and rural land use. And it has a huge bearing on equity outcomes in our community as well. So there's a lot to say about food systems, but we're excited about the ways in which this project has the potential to sort of lay the foundation and set a roadmap for achieving some more specific goals long-term, because we all know that this is a very food-oriented community. There's a lot of great work going on here. And this is sort of a unique opportunity to, again, take a more in-depth look at what are the current conditions and where do we want to be in 5, 10, 15, 20 years going forward.
Katie, before you go on, could you
Yeah.
give us a little bit of background as to how the group came to be and who's in it?
Sure, and that's actually one of the next slides here, so I could just
Okay.
zip to that one. So I'll start by saying that gratefully the project is funded by the county legislature, as well as the Community Foundation of Tompkins County. So both sort of stakeholder groups interested in the food system, I think, among others. The project was conceived of by the Tompkins County Food Policy Council, which has been around for a couple of years and has been convening community conversations to look at the role that food policy might play in improving our food system. And where they landed was that we need a food system plan. We need to do some more research, better understand the challenges, gaps, concerns locally, what are our assets, and what is the community really concerned about, and what do they want to prioritize? So those are kind of the three, well, and the fourth core partner is Cornell Cooperative Extension, which is the fiscal sponsor for the project and supporting the effort in a number of different ways. And the list that you see here is non-exhaustive, and we hope will be growing, but shows some of our partners and collaborators in the process so far. And I'll go back just one slide here to show you sort of our depiction of the food system. Food systems, you might see other definitions or categories, but in terms of what we're looking at as part of this planning process, these are the different sectors. We're thinking of the system sort of soil to soil, everything that happens with food from production all the way through the disposal and hopefully some recovery of food waste. So these are the different sectors that we are looking at in our baseline assessment, and we'll be sort of making recommendations around in the plan itself. Just to give you a little more background about what we're working on currently, we're developing a food system assessment for our local food system, kind of a baseline snapshot. What are the current conditions? It's a combination of quantitative and qualitative research. So we're trying to draw on national sources of data, state and local, and then to also kind of try to validate that with what we know from folks working in the food system on the ground. So there's a very large outreach component to it as well. Lots of interviews, focus groups, conversations with folks across those different sectors. You may have seen, I believe I sent ahead of time a report out on the sort of first step in this process, which happened, which got kicked off almost exactly a year ago with a meeting, a community forum at the Tompkins County Public Library, where there were over 100 community members in attendance. And it was a very energized, exciting session, and kind of the one and only time that large groups of people were able to gather before COVID to talk about this process. So we asked about concerns, strengths, ideas, expectations for a food system plan, and especially people's vision. And I just wanted to share a snippet of what we heard. There's a more comprehensive report of that in that report that I sent. But the people really see food as a right, and they want all people in our community to experience food security such that the need for emergency food, free food services, programs is all but eliminated. People are really interested in seeing our local food economy grow with more people eating food that's produced here. More leadership coming from the BIPOC community, more access, more participation, higher priority, an agricultural system that is contributing to the health of our planet, not degrading it, and that local governments and financial institutions are more engaged, more invested in our food system. So that's just a little preview of some of the things that we're hearing about the community's vision. I also wanted to share just a few snippets from the different sector interviews that we're doing. So we've talked with folks working on food security and access. And when we ask about the biggest barriers to food security that they see for people, we hear things all the way from sort of the structural level challenges of, intergenerational poverty and income inequality and structural racism, lacking a living wage, to more Tompkins specific issues like transportation challenges and geographical kind of location gaps, I guess, issues related to affordability, accessibility of food, sort of cultural, like the stigma of using food pantries, and that there are people who are in need but aren't necessarily aware of the resources that exist. And on the flip side of that coin, the folks who are providing services and programs know that there's unmet need, and it's hard to find, to identify those gaps in the people who aren't being reached. Just a few quotes from some of those interviews I thought you might be interested in. I won't read these here, but you can check them out on your own. And we're, as I said, gathering quantitative data as well. So just a snapshot of food insecurity in Tompkins County. What we know, sort of the best source of data we have, tells us that about 1 in 10 people struggle with food insecurity, and that's more for children. Expecting that number to rise notably in 2020. Don't have that data yet. And I also wanted to just share a quick snapshot of some of the farmer and producer outreach that we've been doing, asking farmers about their biggest challenges and some of the things we're hearing. Land, the rising cost of land, the competition for land, the access to land, a big issue and concern, especially for new and beginning farmers. Folks are concerned about the food system infrastructure. There's big challenges related to processing capacity, to having enough distributors to actually help get local products into local markets and beyond. Being a farmer is not necessarily a viable career path. A lot of people need off-farm income to survive. And the cost of doing business isn't really commensurate with the prices that they're getting for their products. Workforce labor is a big concern as well. And again, some of the quotes, some of the things that we're hearing, farmers are spending a substantial amount of time and energy and resources to adapt to climate change, and it continues to be more and more of an issue. There are needs around resources and building out our local infrastructure. And the farmers think there's more to be done to support and prioritize farmers, especially small farmers here locally. And again, some of the types of data that we'll likely include in this assessment. This is actually from the American Farmland Trust Ag Viability Index. I don't know if folks have seen this, but it's pretty interesting, and I've linked it here for your reference. And lastly, just to talk about the community questionnaire, because I know that's how we originally got connected. So this is active right now, and this is one of our tools. And I'll be the first to admit it's not my favorite, and I don't think a survey is the best tool to meaningfully engage the community, but it is one that we have right now given COVID and restrictions around gathering. So it's a way for us to gather broad community insights and input into this planning process, to hear about their priorities and needs. It's a way to engage the public in participating. We've had just shy of 400 respondents since we released it. And we've not sure the exact number off the top of my head, but well over 50 people share their email addresses, say that they want to learn more, potentially get involved, be contacted. So it's a way for people to learn about what we're doing and to share with them sort of the issues that we're focusing on and that we want to learn more about from the community. And ultimately, really just to ensure that community priorities are included in this process. And as we shape policy recommendations and action steps going forward, that they actually reflect what is true for residents in Tompkins County. So I just want to thank you all for inviting us to be here today, for your interest and attention here, and to invite you to let me know what you want to know about our food system, and also just to open it up to any questions or ideas that you have for us. So thanks a lot.
Well, thank you, Katie, for that wonderful presentation. Does anyone have any questions for Katie?
I do. Two things. One, in terms of sustainability, Katie, the thing that's bothered me for a very long time is that we have an open loop with regard to nutrients. And although there is some initiative at the county level to recycle food waste, there's no apparent effort to try to get the nutrients that they're not food waste, but human waste back on the land. And I think that that's an important inadequacy in terms of our ultimate sustainability, is that we're putting nutrients in at the farm end, and then it's a one-way street to landfill. And the other question had when the hard nut to crack here is you pointed to the equity issues. I've been homesteading for the last 40 years, and I probably would have been a farmer if I'd ever figured out how to make any money doing it. It's not an easy nut to crack, but our food system is very much it's very much stacked against the small producer. Agricultural policy, favors large production, and it's really hard to compete against mechanized production on a large scale, which we're not in Tompkins County well positioned to do. But the critical things you have put a finger on are the need for processing capability, and where we can improve the situation is by more collaboration in like that, creating markets and products to add value to the agricultural products in order to make them worth producing. So I commend this effort.
Thank you for your thoughts, Joel. A lot of what you're talking about resonates and has been coming up, especially in the producer interviews. And I think, while much of what people are concerned about is like the regulatory burdens coming down from much higher levels that we can't necessarily impact directly, or at least quickly, I'm really excited for the second phase of this work, which is to get into what are the solutions and interventions across all these sectors that we can start looking at to deal with some of these challenges. Thank you.
Good luck with that.
Thanks.
Great. I have a question. This is Mark. I'm wondering, it's kind of related to Joel's comment. Do you think there's, or how much of a part of the solution do you think is helping people to grow their own food more, so that you cut out all of the, it doesn't involve distribution and all that. So, and related to that question, I guess, just do you think there are a lot, potential for alternative ways of doing agriculture that are sort of related to that, like CSAs?
Yeah, well, certainly that also comes up quite a bit. I mean, you probably saw it highlighted in almost every slide that I shared, where people really want to figure out how to get more folks growing their own food for, a variety of reasons. And one thing that I really one thing that I hear a lot and I get really excited about is just thinking about how on a very small scale, supporting someone who maybe hadn't previously to grow their own food, whether, like a kitchen garden, from a health and like nutritional standpoint, what that can do for somebody just to kind of have that source of micronutrients, and then how that also intersects with food security, and then food sovereignty is a really exciting piece of this. And we have a lot of partners, like kind of across a spectrum. One that you might have seen on the slide about collaborators was the Learning Farm. And for folks who aren't familiar, it's located in Enfield. It's run by Krista Nunez. And one of her, she's doing so much amazing work, a lot of it with kids. But one of her projects is called A Quarter Acre for the People. And she's working to help get folks who have been urbanized, who have been, traditionally left out of sort of the beneficial aspects of the food system, folks in the BIPOC community, low income, marginalized people, getting them back on land, getting people, or just getting people on land, healing relationships, forging opportunities for people to actually sort of take their food security into their own hands. And part of that is also leveling the playing field in terms of land access. So we're supporting her work and she's supporting our work. And I think there's a lot of potential out there to really, whether it's a program like that, helping people who want to maybe do agricultural work as more of an enterprise or a homestead type of thing, or just people who, another program we work with is the Solidarity Gardens program, which is really just finding people who want to grow and building raised beds and setting them up with seeds and a little bit of information, so that people can really take it into their own hands. And so I do think there is a lot of potential for getting nutritious, healthy food that people actually want to eat into their bodies, whether it's through like a very direct means of doing so, very hands-on, or, doing it by participating in a CSA or supporting someone who's already doing it.
Great.
And I, from Ulysses, and we've had, we are both supportive of agriculture, but I think our farmers would say we have not been supportive enough of them. And so as you describe this food system, I applaud your efforts to think that broad and systematically, but in fact, I think there are several facets of it where there are potentially conflicting goals. So, the description of encouraging people to grow their own food, I can imagine, I see all the value in that, and listening to the comments of farmers who find it not to be a viable enterprise because there's not easy access to markets. It's like, well, if everybody's going to grow their own food, why do we need farmers and how do we help farmers? And then the other dimension is, of course, how farmers can use all the techniques available to them to increase their production, and how we can minimize the negative runoff. Most of Ulysses runs downhill to the lake through lots and lots of creeks and rivulets. And so we're concerned about water quality and figuring out some win-win solutions with our farmers, how that can support their efforts while not, while protecting our environment. There's just lots of overlap and potential for confusion. So one of the things I would, a specific ask in terms of your the research and the collaboration work that you've done is, do you know if there are any farmers from Ulysses who've been part of either your working group or your survey, and whether or not that's information that's available, because those are probably like-minded folks that we'd like to reach out to and engage more with. So, sorry.
Yeah. Thanks, Nancy. Yeah, I definitely hear you about the conflicting goals and just the complexity of it all. And I'm definitely experiencing that as well. And the short answer is yes, we have spoken with Ulysses farmers, and I'd probably have to go back through my list and like see exactly who and how many, because I'm realizing I don't know like the exact locations of all the farmers, but we definitely have. So if you wanted to follow up with me about that, please feel free. I'll make sure you all have my email.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
Hi, Don Shuffler from Groton. I'm confused on when I read through this information. I'm all in favor of people having good food and a lot of it, but how do you balance that with the fact that the same organizations that you list here are gung ho on covering the whole county with solar panels? I see a big conflict there. The farmers are trying to get out of it because they can't make any money at it, so they're leasing their land for solar panels, and we're losing farmland all the time. And I don't understand how that's a benefit to people growing local. So I don't know how that's going to balance out. I'd like to see how.
Yeah, and I have to admit, I don't have an answer to that question, and it's certainly something that is coming up. And when we talk with farmers, the solar development piece is definitely of concern. We talk with a lot of farmers who recognize the need for renewable energy and that we don't really have a future without getting ourselves off of fossil fuels. And at the same time that it's making it, because that process it's rolling out in a really robust way, land prices are going up. It is definitely, there are competing interests there in terms of ag land and land for solar development. So I don't have an easy answer about how it's going to balance out. Part of how I see our role with this food system plan is as sort of a conduit, a messenger to help others in the community understand the concerns and communicate what it's like for people working in the food system and some of those specific challenges. So I'm also curious to see how it pans out and how we can find a way for both very important things to coexist.
Well, I noticed in one of the slides, one of the answers was to grow food on public land. And it just seems to me that it would be more efficient if we put solar panels on public land that's not growing food now, and we just continue to grow food on the ag land. But that's just my thoughts.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
I think the
you'll have
problem
a
we have
war on
here
your
in
hands.
Lansing is that
Luckily, it's
our
not up
prime
to me.
farmland are the ones that are right next to the power lines, and so everyone's trying to turn our community into a solar farm when we've got really good ag land, and we should be looking at lesser quality land for solar panels rather than some of the prime farmland in the county.
Yeah.
I share that thought, and we have lots of not very good farmland in Danby, but it's nowhere near a power line, and so there's no demand for putting solar panels on it.
Well, that somewhat is part of the business of putting in solar panels. Is they need to realize that they may have to run lines too, not just stick solar panels in the ground and their business is done.
We probably have time for a couple more questions. I see George has got his hand up.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm learning about, I was unaware of the conflict between land for solar panels and land for farms. That's something I learned today. So I'm not going to ask about that. One thing I'd like to ask about is, are there up and coming forms of agriculture that don't require a huge investment in equipment or a lot of land. I'm wondering about goats. I see farms that were pretty much abandoned on the road to Valois from Teberg that I've gone on many, many years. And now there's several goat farms there. And the other thing I'm wondering about is these specialized breeds of beef cattle. Are those opportunities for people to actually make some money farming, or am I just seeing things I see and it doesn't really equate to making money? Or are there other ways to get into farming that could potentially be profitable?
That's the $1 million question. And I think it's a great line of thinking to try to identify like the types of farming that are sort of low upfront investment. And I have to say, in the conversations that I've had, which by no means covers, the whole county, we feel like we've had a fairly representative group, both in terms of like the type of farming, where people are at in their careers, just people's backgrounds in general. But even with, I feel like a theme that has come through as I'm thinking back through all the conversations, the theme is that the startup in particular is just so intensive in terms of capital and also just people's time and resources. And whether, even if you are doing some sort of livestock, we talked with a lot of people about renting versus owning land. It's most farmers want to own their land, right? But it's not always an option. So a lot of people rent, they have a blend. But, for livestock, for instance, people don't necessarily want to put up a ton of fencing on land that they're renting. And that is super intensive in terms of cost and labor. I spoke with someone who is just starting like a tree nut farm and a perennial tree nut farm. And, there's not a ton of upfront, but in terms of infrastructure, but just the cost of putting those trees in the ground and then waiting 3 to 5 years for them to start producing. Most people can't do that. You kind of have to have some money in your pocket. And there's a lot of organizations working locally to address some of these barriers, Groundswell, which I'm sure some of you know, being one of them. And they have a program called the Incubator Farm, which they actually have land. It's located at West Haven Farm at Eco Village. And people can spend a couple of years, developing their business model, trying things in a way that's a little less risky. But it's still, even from there, I don't think that program has probably been in existence for, I'm just guessing here, 5 years. And there's very few people who actually come out of it and start their own successful farms. So it's a big challenge. And I do think that there are some, programmatic opportunities, resource support to continue to help people, determine if they want to do this for work and then to figure out how to get around some of those barriers.
Does Tompkins County have an agricultural ag agent through Cornell Cooperative Extension like a lot of counties do?
Yeah, so agent, I don't know if anyone has that actual title, but I'm actually part of the ag department at Extension, and there's a team of people, working in that department. A lot of programs and resources coming out of it, but I personally think there's room to do more.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
By the way, out to answer 2 questions of George's and Don's, out in Enfield, we have a goat farmer, and the goat farmer leases her goats to graze under the solar panels, which provides grazing there. and of course provides nutrient for the goats. Just to answer your two questions, the way to maybe tie agricultural in with the solar industry. I got a question for Katie, if I can, and that regards food pantries, which we have a very, very good food pantry out in Enfield, very well patronized, something
You
like
do.
families a
You
week.
do.
And we have an inadequate facility. We're hoping to get a better one soon, but what we're told is because we have such a good volunteer base and such a good client base, we get a lot of what's called rescue food, which is food that maybe goes past date that the stores can't sell or don't want to sell, and they let the food net distribute them to the pantries, and we get a disproportionate share because we've got the volunteer base that sorts them and then puts them on the table for patrons to use. And I'm told a lot of food pantries in the county don't have that volunteer base. They can't distribute the food so that we get a disproportionate share. We actually get more than we often can use. So I don't know if there's an effort to be made to sort of boost up these other food pantries to do more than they presently do and have a bigger volunteer base.
Yeah, Enfield is awesome. Jean is amazing. I've seen her in action and have also heard a lot of people talk about how Enfield has the best pantry, the best food. I think that Enfield's pantry is special. As you noted, one of the things that has come up in our conversations, and I will say also, we've done a lot to speak with people who are not only like service providers and running food pantries, but also to talk with folks with lived experience who are food insecure. We did a big survey a couple of months ago, and we're kind of still, the data is still rolling in on that. So I'm really curious to hear what people had to say, but there's a huge concern that the food, yes, we have a lot of pantries. I think we have like 17 pantries, which is incredible for a community of our size. Also speaks to the need, right, for how many people are actually utilizing them. But that the food is often subpar. It's not what most of us would choose to eat, whether it's unhealthy or doesn't meet somebody's dietary preferences. Because, part of food security is not just having enough, but it's having enough quality food. It's having enough nutritious food. It's having food that you actually want to eat, having food that your kids will eat. So all of that is to say that I think a lot of the pantries struggle to provide that. They want to provide that. Their clientele wants to receive that. And because most pantries operate on an absolute shoestring budget and are dependent on volunteers, many of whom during the pandemic were less available to show up, because a lot of food pantry volunteers are seniors. That's another sort of planning issue, kind of a vulnerability. Is the next generation ready to step up and support this work? And so yes, I think there's a need there, and I think there's a really important conversation around, how do we want to support and resource pantries going forward? Because sometimes, as somebody said to me, someone who runs another really amazing pantry, she said, sometimes we ask people to give until it hurts, and it shouldn't be that way. And so often the folks who are running the pantries are food insecure themselves. And so I think coming up with innovations and, new models for getting food to people, the food that they want, and also a whole other issue that I touched on, but is just like the dignity piece of it and how to reduce the stigma, how to make it a more welcoming and inclusive environment for people. Because the need is, as much as we talk about making structural changes, which really need to happen on a day-to-day, people really need to eat. And so we have to kind of keep both things moving at once. So yeah, really, really important questions and insights. And I'm taking notes. So thank you all for all that you're sharing.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think we should wrap this up unless somebody has a real pressing question, because we got other things to move on. But I want to thank Katie again for this great presentation, taking the time to answer all these questions.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you all so much. I will put my email in the chat. I'd love to hear from anybody, and I will keep you updated on our progress. And thanks again for inviting me today.
Again, thank you.
Take care.
So my computer is just frozen up, so I can't see the next agenda item because I can't move to that screen. So Mark, can you move us on to the next one, please?
Mark, you're on mute.
Okay, now I'll try it off mute. So the next item is the formation of the TCOG broadband committee. So I think Nick has received the representatives from a bunch of the municipalities. So I don't know if you want to chime in here, Nick, on this.
Sure, I can give a little update. Yeah. Thanks, Mark. A few weeks ago, I reached out to Mark and Rod Howe to come up with a list of representatives for the broadband committee, and this will be basically the steering committee that will be guiding efforts relating to the upcoming broadband study here within Tompkins County that we're going to be working on with Southern Tier Network and Fujitsu Network Solutions on later this year. So Mark and Rod circulated that, and we got a list, I believe, of 9 or 10. I think nine municipalities, and one of them proposed 2 candidates. So depending on how you count it, to serve on that committee. This committee is going to be actively involved in assisting the county and the consultant as we move forward, and reviewing the work product as they come out. Yeah, with that, we're just asking for TCOG here to help formally establish this committee.
Great, thanks, Nick. So the committee is, are you planning to start the committee meetings soon?
Very soon, yeah. We're in the final stages of negotiations with STN about the contract. As soon as that's underway, we understand that Fujitsu and STN will be ready to begin work very quickly. So, yeah.
Great.
Nick, can you just check? I'm Nancy Zahler from the town of Ulysses, and I keep thinking I've sent our contacts, Rod, saying yes, we've got, okay. So would meeting notices be coming then from you, Nick, on this advisory committee, or is that really a group out of TCOG? I'm not quite sure who to look for a notice from.
For scheduling meetings, I'll be the point person for coordinating that.
Okay. So when you say soon, is that within a month or so, you think that the first group meeting might get called together?
Yeah, almost certainly. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Just, I want to give our representative a heads up. And could you just help tease apart? I just saw a notice today about the Southern Tier 8's very long list of people and the program they're running, and sort of how those efforts interface or not with our broadband study committee.
Boy, yeah, I could. I'll give it a shot. But so Southern Tier Network is a nonprofit organization which operates a fiber optic network. Right, that they're basically in the business of providing of broadband not at a consumer level necessarily, but within the more higher level structure of how the internet works. Southern Tier 8, of course, as you know, is a regional group, and they're really looking at, I mean, in my experience, and I will admit my experience with them is pretty short so far, looking at major issues of lacking internet access. It appears mostly in sort of the eastern parts of the region, That seems to be where their focus is right now. And also, so they have a few things that they've been looking at and trying to get a better detailed understanding of where those coverage gaps are in those communities. That's my understanding of, their work today. So there may be other folks here who've had longer experience with Southern Tier 8 can explain where they're at.
Okay, thank you.
And maybe I'm missing something, but I don't, what is your role in it, Nick? Are you the county staff person or?
Yeah. I'll be the staff person leading the effort here at the county.
So has the structure of the committee been worked out in terms of how it relates to you and the county staff, or is that something you're looking to us to do?
It has been mostly worked out. I can pull up the message, I believe, here that outlines some of the committee responsibilities. If you can,
Yeah,
see that.
I have that too, Nick.
Okay, yeah. There were sort of four areas we were looking to the committee for guidance. First, assisting Tompkins County in obtaining data where necessary. Second, reviewing deliverables prepared for the study for completeness and accuracy. Third, as appropriate, disseminating key findings of the study and processes. And fourth, learning about broadband technology to expand community understanding about the topic to better assess opportunities and constraints. So those are the sort of four things we'll be looking at. My gut is that the majority of the work is going to be on that second one in terms of reviewing deliverables as they come out. We've gathered some idea of what similar reports look like from our neighboring counties, and they're pretty thorough studies that involve a pretty high degree of technical information. So the reviewing piece will be an important step, and we'll want to make sure we have a lot of perspectives from around the community to look at those as they come together.
Rod?
Mark and Joel, as I remember when we met with Nick, so when the committee meets, they'll choose a chair, which will be one of the reps that we've identified. And I assume, Mark, that this will just show up then under subcommittee reports, so we'll get a regular update as part of TCOG.
Yeah, that sounds good. So I did craft a sort of a motion for this. If you'd like me to put that forward, Nick provided me the names earlier today, and so I will offer that motion now.
Can you screen share it, Mark? Or?
Pardon me?
Can you screen share it, or you want to read it? Or?
I was going to read it. I can't.
Okay.
But actually, maybe I don't know. Do I have screen share permission? Because I probably.
This is the document that was sent around about an hour ago, right, Mark?
Yes. I didn't send
So
it to
everybody
everyone.
should have it in their email.
Well, I sent that to leadership though, and Katrina.
Oh,
So
okay.
I'll just read it. It's not that long, and it reiterates what Nick just went over. So the Tompkins County Council of Governments hereby forms a broadband committee to support and advise Tompkins County's broadband study to be performed by Southern Tier Network and Fujitsu Network Communications. The committee shall consist of representatives appointed from each Tompkins County municipality. Each municipality may appoint a single representative. The committee will be charged with 4 main tasks: assisting Tompkins County in obtaining data when necessary, reviewing deliverables for completeness and accuracy, when appropriate, disseminating to their constituents key findings of the study and processes being followed, and 4, learning about broadband technology to expand community understanding about the topic to better assess opportunities and constraints. And remember that Nick advised that it'd probably be second, mostly reviewing deliverables. The following members have now been designated by their respective municipalities: City of Ithaca, Duxon Nguyen, primary, and George McGonigal, alternate. Town of Danby, Leslie Connors, Town of Caroline, Will Lawrence, Town of Dryden, Jason Leifer, Town of Enfield, Robert Lynch, Town of Ithaca, Rich DiPaolo, Town of Lansing, Joe Wetmore, Town of Newfield, Michael Allinger, and Town of Ulysses, Linda Little.
I second that motion.
Thanks, Joel. Any further discussion?
There will be a representative from the Village of Groton. We haven't decided on whom yet, but there will be one.
That's great, Betty. And I did word the resolution as members that have now been appointed, so to allow for continuing appointments.
Okay, great.
So,
And same here in Enfield, because we have not designated the person that may permanently be the representative on this. I have been basically given the default honor of sitting on the committee until somebody perhaps a little more geeky in the area of broadband technology is found in Enfield.
great, thank you. So if there are no further comments or questions, I'll sort of help Joe out here. I'm not sure. Where's that? So
yeah, I'm technologically disadvantaged at the moment, but yeah, go ahead.
okay, great. Thanks, Joe. So with that, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Great. Thank you. So with that, let's move on to the updating the cable TV franchise agreement, fiber optic issue. That, go ahead, Joe.
That would be me. Yeah. So Lansing, among other entities in this community, has not updated our franchise agreement for, I think it's like 13 years. And what we're looking at right now is hiring a consultant to do the negotiating for us. My understanding from a couple of people is that if we get a consultant, that they are able to get things out of the cable company that most of us can't, because they understand the rules and regulations much better than we do, and they know how to push. And so the community would end up with more money and a better franchise agreement as a result. And I wanted to take this to this group and hear if people have had any kind of experiences that they could share, and if other communities are interested in following a similar path. So I'm kind of opening it up to hear what other people have to say at this point.
Thanks, Joe. I'll open the discussion.
I hate to say it, but the history in Danby has been one of frustration more than anything. A few years ago, my predecessor in office, Rick Dietrich, led an effort trying to do negotiations collaboratively with several communities. And it was not a particularly effective effort, unfortunately, because it's my understanding that, you can say what you want, but they can basically ignore you if they want to. And they have. We've negotiated extensions and then have them not follow through. And that was the main issue in our area, was trying to get the cable to extend service to areas which are underserved. The only place there's some leeway is in how much of I gather there's a fee that can be charged as part of the bill that can go to the municipality to help address needs. And it's paid by the current users. So, it's out of one pocket to help put it in the other pockets, but it's a way to maybe get the municipality more involved in trying to get the service actually extended. But there was even resistance to that among the current users of the system, because it's an additional expense to the current subscribers to increase the franchise fee.
Yeah.
Okay. Jason?
Yeah, so I was part of that group, and the towns outside of the city, with maybe the exception of town of Ithaca, the focus has always been extension of fiber service because at least with Spectrum, Time Warner, whoever, internet is carried over the same fiber as television, but the FCC doesn't allow municipalities to regulate internet at all. So you can't force them to build out for broadband. The Public Service Commission for New York State has never actually been very helpful at all. They automatically renew your television franchise agreement every 6 months. The Times Dryden tried to bring them in to help negotiate. They didn't get anywhere with, at the time, Time Warner. And when it came to the franchise agreement, I think the meeting that Joel's referring to was about 3 years ago, almost to the day. And Spectrum at the time, they were happy to take the franchise fee money to slowly build out, but they wanted to own the asset. So that's what spurred us to do what we're doing in Dryden with our own broadband network. The fact that if we're going to spend public money, you're better off owning it yourself. So for television, I mean, that's how you have to negotiate it. You're negotiating a television service. So the city and the town of Ithaca, one of their big points was keeping Pegasus, the public access station, alive. But it's less of a concern for everybody else. And I think that the broadband effort's going to actually get you the result you want, rather than beating your head into a wall negotiating television franchise agreements. Enfield's lucky because you have Hayfley and Ulysses. You also have Ontario Trumansburg Telephone running fiber out there, but and Hayfley, I think, did a few small projects here and there in the county due to the grants the county got a few years ago. But by and large, you're better off investing your time in the broadband effort than fighting with Spectrum at this point.
That was very helpful. Thank you. Does anybody else have thoughts that they want to share?
Well, Joe, I'm interested in keeping apprised of this, and yeah, we're potentially interested, but yeah, it sounds discouraging.
That's been my general feeling too, is that 1996 telecom bill basically gutted our ability to do any negotiation. And I'm definitely in agreement with Jason that setting up our own broadband is the way to go. And that's part of what this committee's main charge is to work on figuring out how to get broadband into our community. And this is just kind of a side issue that came up and we're following, but it's certainly not the main issue that we're dealing with. So I will go back to my committee with these comments, and I appreciate people's input, and I'll keep everybody up on where we're headed.
Great. Thanks, Joe.
Good luck.
Thank you. So I guess we're moving on to subcommittee reports. The first one would be Rod on energy.
Sure. So I think that 2020 was all about providing some educational webinars, having discussions about community choice aggregation. Terry Carroll, I think, went to several of our municipalities to do presentations about CCA. So toward the end of the year, we checked in with municipalities to see who might want to, who was interested, they were interested enough to take another step without committing themselves. So there's 6 or 7 municipalities that have now been meeting to talk about potentially starting with CCA 2.0, but keeping open the possibilities for CCA 3.0. And it's a complex situation. So we're hoping to find monies to hire, I'll just say, a coordinator to lead us through this process. We are hopefully submitting a grant application to Park Foundation for their March 26th deadline. So we have had, we had conversations with other entities to see who might be interested in playing with us, if you will. And we've landed on Sustainable Tompkins. So we've been in discussions with Sustainable Tompkins about working with TCOG, the Energy Committee, on that. So that's where we're at. There's a smaller group of municipal leaders who will be meeting, I think, next Monday to look at, it will still be very much a draft grant proposal. But then the broader group, the TCOG Energy Committee, will meet about 2 weeks after that. So we have plenty of time to give input to what the March 26th grant proposal will look like. So it's not committing ourselves to anything, but it is exploring what the options are. It's pretty easy if we had decided to just sign with Jewel and do 2.0, but I think many of the municipalities want to explore something deeper than just ending up with a 2.0. So stay tuned. Some of you have been very involved. I always point to Joel's been very involved. Joel, anything you want to add to that?
I think you said it pretty well.
So stay tuned. By the way, Peter Bardaglio asked me to submit a report from the Energy Subcommittee. Was I supposed to submit a report to TCOG on behalf of the Energy Committee for 2020? I can do that since I've now developed a brief report. So does anyone know, do we gather reports from the committee at the end of each year?
I don't know if we have a formal structure like that or not. I think getting reports is always useful because they can get passed on to people outside the committee as well.
So anyway, I'll send one on so it can be posted to our website or yes, Nancy?
Yeah, just a quick thing. I think you know, Rod, that we did have Terry Carroll come to the Ulysses Town Board this past Tuesday night, and I think it was very helpful in getting everybody up to speed, because I think a lot of people were confused from the last go round. And I don't think we got anyone who was standing up to say, yes, 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 I want to be on the small work group. But I wondered whether we could be on get copies of materials to sort of see how it's developing before we sort of commit person power to help shape it. But we're grateful for you and the others who are working on it. And we will certainly want to, as a town, keep track of that and evaluate our options as we go. So, and we may well have, we have a very active sustainability and conservation committee in our town, and there may be a member of that group that would like to come forward. I don't see any of our individual town board members at this point being on the work group, but we may have, we have very active people in the community who might be appropriate, so.
Sure, yeah, we'll find ways to keep everyone posted. The immediate goal will just be getting in a grant proposal. Of course, there's no guarantees we're going to get the money, so we don't really have a backup plan if we don't. We have had a couple of meetings with Park Foundation, but of course, they're not going to make any guarantees. They're going to get other proposals and whatnot. So I know that several of the municipalities are part of the Climate Smart Communities initiative, and we do now know what their new round of funding looks like. It's all point-based. Terry Carroll has mentioned a couple of times there might be some way to get some funding to move forward from that source if we don't get the Park Foundation, but that's a little less clear to me. Anything else? Okay, thanks.
If there's no further questions, I think we can move on to Mark and emergency planning and preparedness.
Sure, thanks, Joe. So this will be brief. It's pretty much the same as last time. We are still meeting monthly, and it's the working group now is really myself, Rorden Hart, Dan Lamb, Justin Van, and we're still continuing to develop a process and questions to reach out to fire departments to assess ways that we can support them, what their needs are, and not as a group, but as individual entities. So what their individual issues are. So that's where we are. We're going to meet in March, and I'll keep going. So I'll hopefully have something more to report next time about where the process is. But we're moving deliberately and very deliberately and diplomatically on this. So.
Does anyone have any questions for Mark?
Great. Well,
hearing none, I guess we can move on to Robert and transportation.
Well, nothing much has happened in the past month because everything is so much up in the air with TCAT because it's so dependent on COVID and dependent on whether Cornell is in session or not, or whether Ithaca College is in session or not. And the main items, as you probably see on your email inbox coming in from TCAT, are whether somebody got exposure on some bus to COVID. In any event, what I would like to do as we start 2021, if anybody else on TCOG is interested in taking over the chair of the Transportation Committee, I would be welcome to have them do it. I would like to be on the committee, but if somebody has an initiative, something they'd like to do, they'd like to take this over, I would be very much welcome and not be offended at all if they did it. If not, we'll just continue on as we have been.
Well, are there any volunteers out there?
I think you're it, Bob.
Yeah. I'm not seeing a lot of hands there either.
Thank you.
So, does anyone have any questions for Bob on transportation? I guess not. So let's move on to George and water quality.
Unmute, George.
Sorry. Thank you, Joe. I also have a brief report. I got a detailed update from Liz Thomas about what the Eagle Lake Watershed Intermunicipal Organization is doing, the IO. And I forwarded that to everybody. Did everybody get that?
Yes.
Okay. So one thing she asked me to do was to ask TCOG to support a proposed amendment to the state constitution, which is referred to as the Green Amendment, and that would make it a constitutional right to clean air, clean water, and a healthy environment. But the state legislature beat us to the punch because they passed that, I think, in the last month or so.
Mm-hmm.
And it had to be passed in 2 consecutive legislative sessions. This was the second one. And so now it will go to the voters in November. So I guess all we have to do is encourage our constituents to vote for it if in fact we are in favor of it, which I think we are. Hope we are. So that'll go before the voters in November. So we don't have to do anything about that. Liz told me that the IO has some grant money that is available for municipal water quality projects. If you have anything in your municipality that could use some financial help, that might be available through the IO. She also said that they have hired part-time the watershed coordinator for Seneca Lake. And his name is Ian Smith. And he will be working on some projects that straddle the watershed of Seneca Lake and Cuba Lake. So that should be good. The Tompkins County Water Resources Council are a number of things. Some of them are studying the ditches and the plants surrounding the ditches and what could be planted that would be beneficial to stop erosion, et cetera, and it would be native plants. And they're continuing with the marsh mapping. That's not the right word, marsh. Water.
Wetland,
thank you. Hard word there.
Yeah.
And I'm been asked to report that Darby Kiley, who we all know and respect, will be spending more of her time on water quality issues in her job. So that's good news. I think that's all I've got.
Okay, does anyone have any questions for George? Hearing none, I guess we're over to Mark and appointment of a liaison to the Transit Committee.
great. Thanks, Joe. So whenever we last did make such appointment, I am now the representative on the Transit Committee. And we just haven't officially redesignated that. I would like to continue in that capacity if that's agreeable to the group. So I brought that forward for consideration today. So I'll offer a motion to appoint myself as representative, TCOG's representative to the Transit Committee.
I'll second.
that.
We all think this is a great idea.
Thanks for your
in all fairness,
enthusiasm.
I think we should ask to see if anyone else is interested in being that representative.
That's a good question, Joe.
I'm not seeing any hands raising up, so I think
You can't see it.
we can move on. We can move on and say all in favor. Raise their hands.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Anybody opposed?
Okay.
Congratulations, Mark.
Thank you, Joe. Thanks, everybody, for your wild enthusiasm.
So we're down to next meeting agenda items. Does anyone have anything they want to put on the agenda for the next meeting?
Joe,
Thank you.
before you go to the next meeting agenda item, may I just have a moment to share a couple of things from Tompkins County?
Sure.
Thank you. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Leslyn McBean Claiborne. I'm the chair of Tompkins County Legislature, the current chair, and I'll be joining you all for the rest of this year. Hi, Ronnie. As many of you know, I want to start just a little bit with vaccination. Tompkins County has been doing very well with the doses that we're getting from the state of New York. As a matter of fact, I think we're doing better than any other county in New York in terms of getting vaccines in arms, given what we have been given from the state. We have been, like many other counties, pushing the state to allow the counties. In fact, the New York State Association of Counties has been begging the state to allow county public health department, loosen the reins and let counties do what we could do best, knowing our constituents, knowing the landscape within our counties. It's been quite a struggle with the state. Registration, pre-registration was one of those things. the state has been taking its dear sweet time and allowing a county here or there to do it, especially the places where the state has its big state vaccination sites is where they focused on allowing for those to happen. And also places where they might have done a pop-up and saw that it went well. We were fortunate last week to be able to do one of these pop-up vaccination clinics for the state. Worked out very well despite the weather. We're glad for that. And after months of sitting in the state and asking, when might we be able to register people in advance, we finally got the green light to be able to do that. So we're very thankful for that, and almost immediately, because we had the plan in place, we were ready as soon as the state said go. You all might have seen already a press release that went out with the registration information, a form so people can register for a spot. So yay, Tompkins County, we're very happy. The folks who work in our EOC and who have been working, all of us who've been working hard in response to this disease in our community, thank you very much. We have not been taking this very lightly. It's almost a 24/7 operation, and continuing to push the state of New York to do better. If you pay attention, you might notice that around us, we pretty much in Tompkins County get many more doses of vaccines than our neighboring counties. And that's because we continue to challenge the state that if you give us 10,000, we will show you, we will get it done, and we'll get it done much more efficiently than anybody else, and then give us 10,000 more. Haven't given us 10,000 yet, but I think we've gotten 900. The most we've gotten is 1,100 or 1,300 vaccines. So we're plugging away, and with all our fellow counties, we continue to ask the state to loosen the reins some more and give us. So one little thing at a time is happening. I know the registration was a concern for a lot of people. There is some concern, however, and we encourage all of you to speak with constituents. As people register, many people have registered already and have spots out at the state sites later, a few months from now or whatever. If people do register with Tompkins County, get an earlier spot, we are asking people to please remind them to cancel the other one that they might have had. That was one of the concerns for the state, is that people are holding 3 and 4 slots, and the system is not set up to cancel out. And people are afraid. They want to get the vaccine, so they're just holding on to the slots that they get. So we do want to encourage people to cancel out their slots that they have later on if they get an earlier spot. That's important to do. So far in Tompkins County, we've vaccinated just shy of 21,000 people total, which is very good for us. And for first doses, just under 14,000 people got their first dose. So we're good about that. And then I also want to make sure that everybody is aware, and I've seen the Reimagining Public Safety draft report that came out in response to, the governor's executive order 203 that he handed down in June of last year, that all municipal bodies that have policing agencies engage in some process and plan that needs to be submitted to the state of New York by April 1st of 2021. So we're doing some good work. We worked, Tompkins County worked in conjunction with the city. When we started, we had a number of police chiefs and other representatives from your municipalities join us as well, but we understand that there are nuances that go with each of those areas, and you have to do your own work as well. But certainly we have a little bit of a model that can be used. It's not a done deal. This is just a working document. We have to submit something to the state. At this point, it is out for public comment, and the legislature will hold a special meeting in March, I believe March 29th, to allow for us to vote on it so that we can get it submitted to the state on time. So if you haven't seen it yet, it's an interesting read. In the chat, some links. One in particular is a link with a one pager. That's just a one pager of recommendations that I encourage people to take a look at, because whatever happens, within the county, within the city of Ithaca, will affect all of us one way or the other. And so we encourage your comments as well. I do believe that's all I wanted to share, at this point. We just continue to plug along and keeping the spread of this virus low in our community. And I think all of us have been doing a very, very good job compared to what's happening around us. So thank you all very much. And thank you for giving me some time.
Thanks so much,
Thank you, Les.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really wonderful how the county's been taking a lead on this, and I know I appreciate it, and I hear other people appreciating all the hard work the county's been doing for the last year and moving on to another year. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Did anyone have any questions for Leslie?
I'll just reiterate. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'll just say the same thing, Joe. And I was lately been, what I watch is the daily new cases, and I'm pretty impressed. So that speaks volumes. So anyway, and I'm so appreciative of the weekly county calls that Jason and Frank and Amy and all do. So I know that people are up 24 hours a day working on this. So thank you very much. So
I do want to thank the county, and I want to thank Frank Krupa, and I want to thank the legislature for coming to the forefront and urging that a vaccination registry be established. And I'm glad it has been. It's been a discussion point at recent legislative meetings. I want to give a special thanks to Dryden legislator Mike Lane, who initiated this process on February 2nd, that he really pushed for it to have this kind of a sign-up system, and it will help. It will allay the fears of a number of senior citizens. We in Enfield passed a resolution on it, and I'm glad that the county has responded. Thank you.
So, Robert, I do want to appreciate that. I did get the resolution that Enfield passed, but I do want to let folks know that in all fairness, our county team has been, not just our county team, the entire New York State Association of Counties has been lobbying the state for a very long time. I've been in those meetings to allow us to register and pre-register folks. And they were just, like I said, giving one county at a time when they, felt like it. So it's been a long process with them in trying to get the state to budge on this.
Thank you for doing what you're doing.
You're very welcome.
I think there are no other.
Else?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, is there anyone else who has a comment or question for Leslie? Well, thank you, Leslie. Again, I really appreciate it, and so do many others. All the work you've been doing, and thank you for that nice presentation. Mark, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, thanks, Joe. I just want to let everybody know that our friend and colleague Irene Weiser stepped down from the Caroline Town Board as of January 1st of this year. And she, as you know, she was a council member for 9 years. She stepped onto the board at the time that fracking was a hot issue. She was elected on that issue with another council member that shifted the political dynamic in Caroline to enable us to ban hydraulic fracturing for a year. That added to the groundswell that ultimately led to the state's banning of hydraulic fracturing in our area. So, and you all know Irene well, and she's worked on emergency services with this body She's been deeply involved with the broadband issue, and she's been a very hardworking council member. So we wish her well, and we'll miss her. With that, Irene was the alternate under the current structure for Caroline. And so Tim Murray, Council Member Tim Murray, has stepped up to replace Irene as an alternate. He's here with us today. So I welcome him to the TCOG group, and just wanted to update you all on all of that. So thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Mark. And I reiterate how much I appreciate Irene's work on so many fronts, and look forward to working with her in the future as well.
Yeah, please, Mark, please extend to her on behalf of TCOG, I think our collective appreciation for her efforts, and wish her well in whatever is next for her.
Great. Thank you, Nancy. Will do.
Do we want to, as a group, vote a thank you for Irene for all the work she's done for TCOG over the years?
Sure.
Make it a little more formal. I'll put that forward.
Great.
I'll second that.
Yes.
Any further discussion about that?
I would just want to add that she's still very much involved with the community choice aggregation group.
Mm-hmm. So shall we vote quickly? All in favor? Aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Excellent. Thank you.
Great.
So quickly, is there any other things that people want to put on next month's agenda, 2 months from now's agenda? And, you always have time to add it in between meetings, so feel free to email us and we can add things in. Hearing none, and I see the clock ticking at 4:29. Shall we call it a meeting?
Call it a day.
That sounds good, Joe. Good
Okay.
steering to close it.
Adjournment.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. And I'll see you.
Take care.